Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I'm talking with Ellia Bisker and Jeff Morris, who together are gothic-cabaret-rock duo Charming Disaster, who will be releasing their latest album, The Double, on May the 16th. And you will be able to get that on various different formats, streaming services, downloads from Bandcamp. There will also be a double edition, double, with their collected singles, which they put out last year, Time Ghost, a collection of various different songs that previously did not have a home on other albums. So all of those things can be discovered if you go to charmingdisaster.com. They are on various different social media platforms. They're also on Patreon. You can find all those things through the band's website, or you can just, go to Instagram and type in Charming Disaster. So anyway, the band, the music, this was a fascinating conversation for me, as is the case anyway. Anyone that I have on this show means that I like the music that they make. And so I already wanted to talk about the music. They have this, as I mentioned, there's a sort of a dark ghastliness to the lyrical content of Charming Disaster, but it's all quite tongue-in-cheek and playful and funny as well. And we do talk about some of the inspirations they have. Well, one in particular, Edward Gorey, we get into a little bit about how that sort of influenced their aesthetic. But there are other fascinating aspects to Charming Disaster, including their stage presentation. So both Jeff and Ellia come from a kind of a stage vaudeville background, which we get into, and this comes out in both the way that they present the music on stage and also some of the different performers that they've shared stages with. They also have an oracle deck of basically tarot trump cards that they use to pick out songs for their set. So there were a whole fascinating range of topics that I have never and maybe will never discuss again with other artists on this podcast. It was fun. And we also got into talking in some depth at the end of the interview about the practical side of things and how they support themselves with the band, which I found really fascinating. I would say one of the most fascinating discussions from that point of view so far. And for anyone who is an independent artist or interested in trying to sort of make a way in the music world, I think this could be quite insightful as well. So there you go. That's my pitch. That's my plug. They were lovely. The music's very fun and well put together and well performed and well sung. And you're going to hear a little bit of it in a moment, because I'm going to play a clip from a song, the name of which I've forgotten. I think it might be New Moon. I think it's New Moon. And then I'll play that at the end of the interview. And as well as the album release, Charming Disaster are going to be touring in the Midwest and then heading north after that at the end of May, June. I'm saying this with hesitation because my American geography is terrible. My US geography is terrible, but there you go. They will be touring in the US late May, early June, and hopefully coming to the UK as well a bit later, but dates for that are as yet to be confirmed. If you want to go support me or whatever, you can stalk me on various different platforms at Tom Osman Sounds. If you want to check out my music, you can go to tomosmansounds.com. And there's something else to mention about the podcast. So usually, for anyone who has been following the podcast, I almost without fail, apart from one time when my previous laptop died, put out episodes Tuesday, every Tuesday. Well, what has recently happened is I came back from holiday in Australia and I went, I don't have any interviews for episodes lined up. I'd better get on that. And I did quite a few. And now I have a big backlog of about 10 interviews that I've done, some of which are supporting music that's already come out. And when I was looking at the schedule of how I was going to do this, I was like, I'm going to end up putting out episodes with people in June where they're promoting something that came out in March or April, and I kind of don't want to leave it for that long. So I ummed and ahed, and I decided for the next little while, I'm going to put out 2 episodes a week. So after this episode, there's going to be an episode coming out on Friday, and then next Tuesday, and then the Friday after that, and then Tuesday, and then Friday. And we will see how long this goes on for. Not indefinitely, I think, because I already am spending a lot of my time trying to edit podcasts. So now I'm going to be doing twice in a week. But anyway, there it is. So don't be surprised when you see another episode pop up on Friday. It is not a mistake. And anyway, all of that being said, Ellia and Jeff of Charming Disaster, take it away. This is being recorded.
Excellent.
Wow. This is I mean, I've seen people have artificial backgrounds before, but you're sucking me into a spiral.
Oh, that's not artificial, I'm afraid. That's a real void back there.
Real void.
Shit.
We scream every morning.
Well, I mean, I knew it was going to come for me eventually, so I guess today is the day.
It's the day.
Anyway, Tom, nice to meet you.
Ellia, nice to meet you too.
Jeff, nice to meet you, Tom.
And I already feel self-conscious about this banal background that I have, and now I feel especially self-conscious because yours is so...
It looks very homey. It looks very mind-blowing.
Where are you right now?
I am visiting my mum. Well, actually, she's not here. I'm basically cat-sitting. I'm looking after the cat. It has abandonment issues. So if you see a fluffy tail at some point in the middle of this interview, it's because I try not to lock him out in case he gets too distressed.
Understood. I have a very needy cat as well who, when I'm at home, does not like it when she's locked out of the office during Zoom calls.
Exactly. That's not acceptable.
Yeah. And where is this house?
In the world. Where in the world is your
Oxford.
mom's?
Oh,
excellent.
Great.
Oh, right on cue. Here he comes. But I'm actually I'm based in Glasgow these days. I've moved around a fair bit.
Oh.
I was in Germany for a while, and I was in Czech Republic before that.
Oh, cool.
So, but yeah, I decided to come back to the UK just at the point that all my friends were complaining about how much they hate it here and they want to leave the country. And I was like, I just got back. Like,
yes.
I'm sure it wasn't personal.
I try not to take it personally. And where are the two of you in New York? Have I got that right?
That's
yeah,
correct.
we're in Brooklyn right now.
And without wanting to slip into political conversation, how are you finding Brooklyn at the moment?
God, it's a terrifying time, and it's pretty nuts to be here as an American. Yeah,
Without a doubt.
Yeah, like is our society like really collapsing? Are people gonna like have had enough? Are the Republicans gonna stop being such cowards? Are the Democrats, for that matter? Like it's dark times here. But we're doing our best to make a space for people to be in, nevertheless.
Yeah. I like to think that however crazy and dark times get, we can still kind of nourish ourselves on artistic expression and hopefully some kind of sense of community.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. We tour a lot all over the States, and and to some pretty red places, and it's interesting to make a show, to do a show in a place where people maybe feel like they need to be careful of what they say or who they say it around, and to make a space where like the people who are at that show can kind of look around and clock each other and be like, okay, like you're here, like I guess like this is a safe space, and like maybe that person has more alignment with me than I might have imagined.
It's true.
So,
Our shows tend to be pretty self-selecting crowds, and
and there's kind, curious weirdos everywhere.
everywhere.
I like that. There's kind, curious weirdos everywhere. That's a nice line.
Yeah, we try to find them and introduce them to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are definitely, aspects of your kind of the performative nature of your music and your whole sort of thing that you've got going on. Because here we go. All right.
Hello.
Hello. What's the kitty's name?
Timothy.
Timothy. Oh.
Very handsome. Yes. Lovely. Lovely coat.
Thank you, Timothy. Yeah, there are a variety of different aspects I want to get into, but first of all, I would like to say that I have been enjoying the double very much.
Oh,
excellent.
I feel like, so I want to give you my kind of take on the
Please.
on the album, and I wonder if this is kind of something that you can relate to. Timothy, come on, come down, come down. So,
You know what that is hidden, Tim.
so I feel like, and maybe in a way this kind of comes out in your name, there's a sort of dual aspect to the presentation where there is something kind of gothic and ghastly about it, but it's also sort of a kind of like a fun cabaret aspect as well. And it kind of makes me imagine that, you could be performing this music at a Victorian birthday party. It's just that there might be poison in the birthday cake. Does that feel like a kind of fair appraisal?
Very accurate.
Very, very
yeah. I'd also like to think that we could be performing our music at a cabaret in like the underworld, for like the spirits that come in and are like a little confused or
disoriented.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I think I saw as well that you have performed with a variety of different acts or shared the stage with a variety of acts that aren't necessarily overtly musical, like, kind of circus acts perhaps or something like that. So maybe you can tell me a bit about the kind of other performers that you associate with and how that kind of goes back in terms of the history of your performances.
Oh, sure. Well, I guess it bears mentioning that I got my start in showbiz with a circus show, the Bindlestiff Family Circus, who are based here in Brooklyn. First as a merch girl, and then ultimately getting into becoming a performer myself. So that's like very much part of my DNA as a performer is that sort of start and circus. It's more like a variety show or like a music hall show, vaudevillian and very very presentational. And so Jeff and I are both part of like a pretty wide community of variety artists here in the States. And that has extended to the burlesque world, to sideshow artists,
puppetry.
For a non-puppet act, we have performed
a lot of
with so many puppet shows. Like we are not puppets, and yet
we
somehow you come together.
Yeah.
And we've also done performances with like visual artists giving presentations about their work or doing like mini lectures.
Scientists, we've had a few scientific lectures. What else? What other?
Well, I mean, it leans like, heavily towards circus and burlesque and puppets, but it's not limited to that. But yeah, we really love getting to cross over into other worlds through the kind of music that we make and the kind of subjects that we like to engage with in our songs. It's opened a lot of interesting doors for us. We did get to MC a fire show once at Coney Island. Which was fun as non-fire artists to be emceeing the fire show. But we did make a few fire acts of our own as interstitial bits. We roasted a marshmallow on stage with like a creme brulee torch, and we did a dance with some sparklers that was exciting.
Variety of daring do.
Yeah, we're open to expanding our repertoire.
That's right. If you're interested in a personal fire show.
And so in terms of like what you're actually doing on stage when you're performing, has that sort of multi-aspect performative side of it always been a part of what you do on stage?
Interesting. I think so.
It's definitely progressed, I think. But we've kind of, since there's just two of us and we're both a little bit of hams, I would say. We're trying to do as much as we can with what we have, whether that's playing multiple, like I play foot percussion. We both play foot percussion. I play a bass drum with my foot as I'm playing guitar and singing. Ellia plays a hi-hat as she's playing ukulele and singing.
So you get a sort of two-person, one-man band effect.
Yeah, and so we're trying to maximize what we have. And along with that, we try to interact a little bit with the audience, make it a dramatic show as much as possible. And that is
we break the fourth wall a lot. Like
Mm.
we have people, help determine the set list through random card draws,
I
which
was
is
going to
really
say, I wanted to ask you about your tarot cards, which I understand are kind of connected to how you devise your set lists.
yes, we will talk about that and we will tell you all about those in a second. But I did want to just finish answering the question, which is that there are certain songs that as we've been playing them over the years, we have developed like real shticks for, and that's been like an evolving process. So like we have one song where in the middle of the song I pull out a kazoo and do like a solo on the kazoo, which kills, which on the recording is actually a beautiful trumpet solo. But
Transformed into kazoo on stage.
yeah, exactly.
And so there's certain songs that have become like very much theatricalized as we've been playing them over the
Especially
years.
once we've got wireless rigs for our instruments. So we can walk out into the audience and kind of interact a little bit and interact with each other in the audience, which we do on a few songs. And that's been fun. So that's kind of progressed as we've played.
Yeah, we have more and more like bits.
Yeah.
So the cards, some years ago we started performing tarot sets. We came up with a kind of correspondence between our songs and cards from a standard tarot deck. So for instance, our song Ocean City, we said, well, that's connected to the chariot, that's like a card of traveling and movement. Ocean City is a song about two people in a stolen car on a joyride. And so we then would have audience members draw cards from the tarot deck, and we'd be like, "Oh, you drew the chariot, like that means
Yes.
it's time to play Ocean City."
Right. And that goes into the position of the current situation. So we'll have a Celtic cross spread, the kind of traditional tarot spread, where each position of the card represents a certain kind of aspect.
Right. Like this card represents the recent past. This card represents the obstacle blocking your way. And so the cards as they're drawn tell us not only what songs to play, but also create this sort of overarching narrative that the songs populate. So after a long time of doing it with a standard tarot deck, we thought it would be so cool if we had a deck of cards that like really corresponded to our songs, especially as we were developing more songs. The connections with the tarot cards became more and more tenuous, or like the really obvious cards had all been used up, and it's like, well, what do we have? We've got the Five of Wands. Like,
it's like
that's like a really vague looking image. Like, what? Well, yeah. And then it also becomes hard to like remember, like what
is
Yeah.
like what song is this?
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, when we were doing a Kickstarter to support the creation of our album Supernatural History, we thought this is a great opportunity to, because we wanted to commission art from other artists, and we wanted to pay everybody some money for their work, and doing that and producing the decks, like it's like it costs a lot to do that on the front end. So we were able to raise the funds for that through the Kickstarter, and we ended up commissioning 24 artists to create the 60 cards of the deck, which represented our like recorded discography at that point, more or less. And so it's not a tarot deck. It's called an oracle deck because it's basically like all majors. If you're into tarot, it's like all trump cards, as they're sometimes called. And so we have like the river, which represents our song What Remains, which talks about a river, and we have the murderer card, which represents our song Murderers. But each of the artists had kind of free reign to create an image that came out of the song lyrics, but spoke like whatever spoke to them in the song, as far as imagery went.
So does that mean that when you're performing and you're using these cards to dictate your set, that you're basically prepared for about 60 different songs that you could play in any particular order?
That's a great question. Typically, we tour with about half of the cards in the deck ready to go, because it's hard to be very tight on, on 60. And the second edition of the deck, which is we're about to release, now has 72 cards because we sold out of the first edition, and rather than simply reprint it, we now have another album's worth of material. And so we've expanded the deck with 10 more cards, 12 more cards, 10 more artists, and an updated guidebook for the, for divination purposes. So yeah, we a typical set for us is 10 songs if we're doing one set. And so if we're doing a 10-song set, we'll probably have like a couple dozen cards in the bag that we're drawing from. So there's an element of chance, and there was one show where the wrong group of cards went into the bag.
That's right.
So the first card got drawn, and I was like, I must not have been paying attention when we were like deciding what would be in the bag. And then the second card was drawn, and we were like, oh no, we know exactly what happened here.
It was all the songs we weren't expecting to play.
Exactly. There's some songs which we need a piano to play, and and that kind of thing. But I think ideally we should be able to like play all 72. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can more or less play all 72, but like some of them will be less good.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating.
A world tour.
It's fun to have that many songs ready to go though. And sometimes we'll do a run of shows. Like we're gonna do the Fringe Festival in Rochester, New York this fall, and we've got three shows. And our goal will be to do all different songs in the 3 shows. And so we'll definitely be prepared to play 30 different songs, but we'll probably have like 50 cards in the bag.
Yeah.
Well, on the topic of the range of material that you have, so you put out a compilation last year, Time Ghosts, collecting songs from, I think, 2013 to 2024.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think as well with the double that comes out on the 16th of May, there's actually going to be a double vinyl edition where you have both of them together.
Yeah.
One thing I was wondering about was, having put that collection together, I wonder, did that sort of have an impact on the double and the creation of it? Like, did it feel like this was sort of a summation of everything you'd done, or it was like a new chapter, or maybe you'd already written these songs before you actually put the compilation together?
Oh, interesting. The compilation was kind of it had been on our wish list for a while to release those songs under one roof, as it were, because we've released a bunch of singles over the years that get less play because they're not part of any of the albums. So it was more like gathering up the waifs and strays and orphan songs to give them a home, which is what we did last spring. And so not so much that they influenced the double. I mean, it's more like just it's an interesting survey of like what our songs sound like over 10 years of making songs together. And the double is kind of where it's gone since then.
Yeah. And then there were two newer songs released as singles, and also that were on that album. And
Stockholm Syndrome and Cherry Red. Yeah, which we actually recorded at the same time as some of the
other ones
that are on the double.
Yeah. So
they were like harbingers.
That's right.
Well, there's a few different directions I want to go. I suppose talking about, your songs in terms of waifs and strays, I feel like this is sort of an opportune moment to talk about Edward Gorey, because I used to work in bookselling, and I remember we had the Gashly Crumb tinnies, if I'm calling it correctly. And I remember... B is
for Amy, fell down the stairs. B is for Basil, assaulted by bears. Yes. I know we know it well.
I feel like it makes a lot of sense listening to your music to then remember this artwork. So I'm kind of wondering for you, what was your exposure to Edward Gorey, and what drew you in?
Oh.
It was probably the Gashly Crumb Tinies for me. I remember having it as a poster in college, and actually cut it up and put it on the inside of my kitchen cabinets.
Yeah, I was exposed to those books very early on. I had the Loathsome Guest, I think, for a while. I think that one. and that was the first one. And then the Alpha Gorey
Oh yeah, no, my
published
best friend in high school actually had one of the Amphigory
the
compilations,
Alpha
and so
Gorey.
I must have read that with her as well. Also, Edward Gorey's artwork was like, it was in the PBS mystery, that series mystery on public television. His artwork was like the animation sequence for the opening
Yeah,
credits, and so
Uh,
that aesthetic was like there was some osmosis, I think, that
oh,
happened in
definitely.
a few places.
yeah.
Um,
No,
Yeah,
it definitely fits the aesthetic.
yeah, well, and I mean, he's so funny. Like those books are so funny and so arch
Yeah.
and so dark.
Mm.
Uh, all the dead orphans.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of dark things, that would draw me to one of my favorite songs from the double, which is Vitriol. And
Oh,
I love that first line. What was it? Slip into the acid bath.
yeah.
Which again, I thought was kind of reflective of this double aspect of the sort of playfulness, but also the sort
Mm,
of Victorian horror.
that's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um, that song actually has a very specific inspiration. There's an artist who's become a friend. His name's Thomas Little. He's sort of like a modern day alchemist. And one of his ongoing projects, he's an ink maker, among other things. And one of his ongoing projects is he takes guns and he dissolves them in acid and uses the resulting iron sulfate to make writing ink, which he sells and uses the proceeds to buy more guns to make into writing ink. So it's this very poetic, pen is mightier than the sword kind of gesture.
Yeah.
Um, and the ink bottles are really gorgeous,
Beautiful.
and it's such a yeah, like we were so moved by this project that we wanted to kind of honor it in a song. And so yeah, slip into the acid bath, like it does sound like we are telling a person to do that. And look, like you can interpret it how you like, but the song is about that process, that
Yeah.
alchemical process of turning a weapon into an instrument of creativity. And vitriol, the title, refers not just to the emotion, but it's an archaic term for the acid that is used in the process.
Wow. There are certainly topics coming up in this interview that have never come up in an interview I've done before, and I imagine may well never come up again. It's great. I love it. Something else that I wanted to touch on, and kind of amplified by you telling me about how you both have drums that you use on stage as well. I wanted to talk about your vocals and the vocal interplay, because I think you have wonderful, unusual harmonies. Particularly one of the songs that stood out on the new album was New Moon. You do this thing. I mean, I'm not really very good with the sort of technical descriptions of melodies, but it's like you've got one melody that's sort of like monotonous and the other one that's moving around, and the way that they play off each other creates almost a kind of dissonance that I thought was really effective. So I already thought that was impressive, but now when you tell me that you're also playing drums while you're playing and you're singing, this seems like incredibly complicated
Oh yeah, it's really hard.
coordination.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like as we're writing the song together, we're often sitting side by side and like with the ukulele and guitar and playing it and working out the harmonies. We're trying to get again, making it as interesting as possible with just two people and like, you could sing in parallel harmonies and then you can kind of take turns who's singing, but like to try to make some kind of fugue or some kind of like overlapping interesting interplay is another thing that we try to keep going. And then when we go into the studio, we work with our collaborator Don Godwin,
Mm.
who not only is a great engineer, he's a fantastic musician. He plays drums and bass and horns on that album. And then we kind of brought we like talked with him about what the drums should be. We weren't quite sure, but we collaborated a little bit, and he came up with this really cool drum rhythm. And now that the song is recorded and made, and we're going out live and playing it, performing it live with our kind of, our more modest setup of just like one kick drum and one hi-hat, we have to like reinterpret it again.
Yeah, it's like we're covering our own song in a sort of stripped down fashion. And also like adding the foot percussion means that like we get terrible at playing it again because it's really hard. And then then it sort of it clicks and we can do it all. It also makes it really easy to play the song without the foot percussion
it
once
makes it
we've
much
added
easier.
it and taken it away. So there's
Exactly.
like a learning curve with our newer songs that we've become familiar with.
Yeah, some are more tricky than others, obviously, but
That song we were really influenced by Low, the last album, Hey What, and especially White Horses, just like the way that their
harmonies are
yeah.
specific. Yeah.
Yeah, like the like dissonant drony stuff that they do was definitely an influence on that song in particular.
Yeah.
But we really drill into the harmonies. It's really fun. When we started this band, we were each the band leader of our own larger band. And we each had backup singers, but like, we were each the lead singer of our own band. And so to have two lead singers like is so fun. Like you can do so much. And so when we get into like drilling into the details of making those vocal harmonies, there's a lot of like, all right, well, like, okay, I'm in the G, you're on the B. Let's switch. Let's see what it sounds like.
What's it sound like?
Oh, no, that's like a weird interval. It's too high for you, it's too low for me. All right, let's put it back. Okay, what if like you do the third and I do the okay, like we get like really nerdy about it. We've even been known to like make a sort of matrix where it's like, all right, like we're playing a G chord, so like I can sing like the B or
These are
the
all the notes I
G,
can sing.
but like the other one's too high. The D's too high for me. So
Yeah.
like these are my I see we have this sort of like permutations. I will try them all out, and sometimes like that's how like the song will end up being like in the end.
Yeah, and truthfully, I think it can be more interesting than three-part harmony, which has to stay pretty locked into the patterns.
Otherwise, you step
or else
on
it
each
gets
other. Yeah.
too confusing, for the most part.
But yeah, you can do stuff like this where like the shapes are different, like you were describing.
Yeah.
Or like one person can sometimes be above and sometimes below. Also, Jeff loves singing high, and so like when and I think it's something that actually sets us apart as like a male female duo is that like often Jeff is taking the high part, and I'm taking the low part.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I guess another song that comes to mind when you're talking about the different sort of shapes of the singing is A Trick of the Light. Like you've got very cool rhythmic interplay that's going on with that too.
That one's so
cool.
fun. That's
really
like
fun.
that's like really fun to play. And the foot percussion on that one is also like really fun to do because we have this like it's sort of in six, but like where the accents fall changes depending on which part of the song it is, and
There's like a bar of
sometimes there's a bar of
seven.
seven. Yeah, it's and the lyric the like melodic line sort of goes off the end of the bar line. Like it's doing a lot of stuff that's fun. And then we do the classic charming disaster thing at the end, which is we do it all at the same time.
Put all the parts on top of each other just to do it.
Yeah.
And on the topic of that song, I wanted to talk a bit about the video. So it kind of gives me this flavor of Nosferatu seen through the eyes of John Waters.
Oh, I love that. We will share that with the director for sure. He will be thrilled to hear that.
So tell me about how that video came together.
Well, we were working with these students from FSU, Florida State University.
Which has a really excellent film program.
Yeah.
We met them when they did a student documentary about us a couple years ago. They came on tour with us for a few days, and they made this really beautiful little short film about us on the road.
And they decided to come up to New York for a weekend, and they agreed to shoot this video. Basically, they're like, "Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's do it." And it was a group of 3, 4 people, And they'd all worked on each other's films and other projects in school before. So they were really used to working with each other and very professional because they teach them, the standard way films are made, and they're used to working very rigorously. And, they had all the lingo down. They were very like, I don't know, on top of it.
Yeah,
And
fly this in, 86 that,
they're
and
very pro.
they know how to use the gear, and they're very pro. And so the director is Zal Manzelko, and Zal made a storyboard. Like Zal kind of created the concept
Yeah.
for the video, which is you've got Jeff's character who is kind of
Has all these kind of romantic ideas what being a vampire would be like, and it fantasizes about being seductive and all
and
this.
like seducing the victim, which is my character. But then midway through, the tables turn, and you realize that Jeff's character is in fact the victim, and my character is in fact the vampire.
It's a true story. That's how we met.
That's how we met. So it's really fun to do. It was fun to work with these bright young film students who we've collaborated with on a couple other things. We've got some other projects afoot with them as well.
Mm.
And we got to shoot part of it at the historic Greenwood Cemetery here in Brooklyn, picnicking among the graves, which was very special.
Mhm.
And then we used a lot of fake blood in a Brooklyn backyard.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Hershey syrup and red food coloring.
yeah, everything smelled like chocolate for days.
Yeah. Could be worse.
Yeah, no, it was bad.
That's true. That could be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was interviewing a band of completely different musical style recently, and they use fake blood on stage. So that was actually one topic that I have already had, which is about
Oh,
the
yeah.
different
Oh, yeah.
constituent parts of fake blood.
Yeah, what was their recipe?
Oh, now I can't remember, unfortunately. But I think they said that they had one time where they forgot to bring their fake blood, and so they were in a foreign country. I think they were in Czech Republic actually, and they couldn't read any of the labels, but they ended up buying beetroots and they crushed them up. But what they didn't realize was that the beetroots were like stewed in vinegar, so they ended up having them all over their bodies, and by the end of the tour, they'd all got these terrible rashes because of the vinegar.
Rock
So a
and
cautionary
roll.
tale. Rock and
Yeah.
roll
Oh.
indeed.
Yeah.
To sell.
Note to self. Oh, that's so
Wow.
funny.
Just use fresh beets, really.
Well, indeed. Yeah, there you go. If you
Good
can.
to know.
I was wondering, like going back specifically to the musical side of things, are there any particular bands or performers that you think of as being your contemporaries? Like if I was to think of bands that I might fit, not necessarily that sort of like sound like you, but sort of feel like they occupy a similar sort of world. I think of like Lovely Little Girls or Tiger Lillies. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah.
either of these.
Tiger
Yeah,
Lillies, yes.
Tiger Lillies.
Lovely Little Girls we'll have to check out.
Yeah.
They're fronted by a very fun painter called Gregory Jacobson, who is also worth checking out. He has very unique paintings that he does and illustrations. And I interviewed him a little while ago, and yeah, I'm a big fan of his art, but also a fan of his music. So I would strongly suggest you check them out. But
Cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, we will.
yeah, what is your experience with Tiger Lilies?
Oh,
Oh.
I've heard some of their songs. I admire their aesthetic and their playful cabaret approach.
Yeah,
Their
I think
macabre, dark.
I think I had like a
darkness.
bootleg video of Shock-Headed Peter somewhere, and that was so wonderful. Um, but yeah, and I think didn't we have tickets to see them and they canceled and they were it
Yes.
was
Oh, was
like
it like a COVID thing?
yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was. But
Right, I've forgotten about that. As far as other contemporaries go, I would mention the Dresden Dolls, as a
yeah,
theatrical duo. There's some folks who we perform with from time to time who we feel a kinship with in terms
Mm.
of what the sort of theatrical we have a shorthand for this, which is show people. Um, so there's a band called the Peculiar Pretzelmen, who are based on the West Coast, and we've performed with them out there, and they are kind of like if Tom Waits and I don't know who
And someone else.
had a baby that was made all of junkyard instruments. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, they're really fun.
Very fun.
Another duo. They often end up being other duos. 'Cause I think there is something like about I mean they're not all other duos, but like there is something about like doing everything you can with just two people and like
Yeah.
the kind of minimalist maximalism of that
Yeah.
there's a sort of aesthetic affinity. I would put Lung in that category, even though they're very different from us sonically. They're a heavy metal duo who have cello and drums and a lot of vocals, and they're just like
Oh, you love them.
incredible. Yeah, they're so good. Who else? Curtis Eller, who's a US musician who tours a lot in the UK. We've learned a lot about stagecraft and showmanship from Curtis, who is sort of rock and roll banjo player with songs about Richard Nixon and the Dust Bowl, and it's all more relevant than ever.
Oh, this is great. I've got some homework for sure.
Yeah, there's a band called Dust Bowl Fairies out of upstate New York who do sort of acoustic gothic stuff.
I'd say even Rasputina.
Oh
like,
yeah.
that they're
Uh-huh.
not playing so much anymore.
But yeah, Rasputina's story, like intricate storytelling songs, are definitely
Victorian
influential.
stories.
Yeah.
On the topic of interesting duos, you made me remember I some years ago went to a show in London, and I've forgotten the name of the venue, but it's basically a converted church or a chapel. And I saw, I don't know if you're familiar with the now defunct Oxbow.
Oxbow Incident.
Not Oxbow Incident, no. Totally different kind of art rock band. And basically this was the singer and the guitarist from the band, and they had a mini orchestra. And the vocalist was on this pulpit. It was amazing. It was such an unusual environment. But they had a support act that was called Ore, as in like iron ore. And it was two guys who looked, they had no shoes on. They looked kind of Amish. And they were sitting on wooden chairs facing each other, and they both had tubas.
Wow.
And one of the funniest aspects, like the sound was really cool. It's a shame. I don't know if they're still around. I haven't like really found any stuff of them online. I really regret the fact that I didn't buy one of their CDs. But they played this song, and it went, I mean, like a tuba thing for like, and it went on for like 15 minutes. And then they went, thanks, this is our last song. And then they did another 15-minute one. So I just thought that was really well done.
Gosh, that's really good.
Wow. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah,
Or-
as I say, I'm not quite sure how easy it'll be to find stuff of them online, but yeah, that was quite unique from my point of view. So on this podcast, I like to ask some sort of practical questions because I am really sort of, I don't know, I guess I would say like emotionally invested in I don't know, help might be slightly too grandiose a concept, but I really want to understand the lives of independent artists ultimately for the purpose that I want to try and kind of like, shine a light on it. And if I can in some way sort of like help in this, age where there's kind of like, streaming services are all around. People maybe spend their $10 a month on Spotify and they go, oh, it's great, I'm supporting artists, but they don't necessarily think that, well, the 0.001 penny or cent.
It's actually 0.03. That's a third of a penny per stream.
Yeah.
We're breaking it in.
So I do feel like it could be valuable for people to have a bit of a better understanding of what it's actually like as independent artists trying to make something of a living. Because I do understand that for a lot of people, myself included, we maybe do creative work without particularly expecting that it's going to massively enrich us. But at the same time, someone's getting money, and it also doesn't really feel right to be putting time and effort and art out into the world and have other people getting rich off it, and the people who spend the time and the effort and the blood, sweat, and tears not really getting much back from it. So I'm interested to know from your point of view, like, how much can you make a living or, support the band with what you do? And what is it that you actually support it with?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like this question. Musicians such as ourselves do need all the help we can get, and having people understand what the economics look like, I think is helpful. We're interested in that kind of transparency. We have very low overhead, and that is part of
Right.
we pay ourselves a monthly amount out of the band fund each, and we also pay a social media assistant who really helps with a lot of stuff. And we also, so I'm starting with like what goes out all the
Hmm.
time. So we're paying ourselves, we're paying Eden, our social media assistant, we're paying the rent on this rehearsal space
This
that we're
void.
doing,
Yeah.
this void that we're in right now.
Hmm.
And there's some other incidentals that are like
Yeah.
pretty regular. We also spend money on renting vehicle for touring and, places to
Airline tickets.
stay,
And,
eating, airline tickets, that sort of thing. Where the money comes from is a patchwork. We have a Patreon, which basically covers the studio rent. And we've got like, I don't know, 150 or so Patreon patrons, mostly at small monthly amounts, which is cool. We make some money off of Spotify, but like to make some money off of Spotify means like we make like 3 digits of money off of Spotify every month, which isn't very much, but like translates to like
a lot
a
of
lot of
streams.
streams. So like we
Yeah.
had like 2.5 million Spotify streams in 2024, um, which is a huge number, but like, but translates to like a modest amount of money. Like we're grateful for it and it's more than a lot of people make, but it's tiny. Um, we do a Kickstarter for pretty much every album we put out now to help us with upfront costs of
Hmm.
producing vinyl and Oracle decks and
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Bandcamp, which
yeah,
people
and
can buy the downloads or our merch or the vinyl and CDs directly from us.
Bandcamp is great.
Yeah.
It also like it. I'm always so moved when people pay more than the minimum amount on Bandcamp,
Sorry.
which like they
Yeah.
do a lot, and like
Yep.
it makes a huge difference. Also, like $10 of a download on Bandcamp equals 3,000 streams on Spotify.
Wow, when you put it like that, that really
Yeah,
puts it into perspective. Yeah, I always like to promote Bandcamp, and I do feel like they have a much friendlier model. It's funny, I remember when Radiohead put out In Rainbows, whatever year that was, and they had what at the time seemed very innovative, where they said, okay, we're going to put this online digitally and you pay whatever you want. People were like, what? This is crazy.
yeah,
And then,
Right.
like, to your point, people would decide, and you might think like, oh, everyone's just going to take it for free, but actually, no. A lot of the time, people will pay more
yeah.
because they kind of think this is worth this to me. So that is something that I do appreciate as well. That like people can decide how much they want to give, and you can be pleasantly surprised by the generosity of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. And everyone can
Yeah.
be generous. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. We get to be generous. They get to be generous. Like
it works.
it's really we actually do some donation-based house concerts that are a similar model where it's like it's pay what you wish on our live streams as well. It's pay what you wish, and some people are very generous, and some people don't give anything, and then it's us being generous to them, and most
Yeah.
people it's somewhere in the middle. But it almost always kind of evens out.
Oh, yeah.
Merch is a big thing for us, and also touring is a big thing for us. Like when
Mm.
we tour, because our overhead is pretty low and there's just two of us, and we often stay at people's homes, some hotels, but like we often do homestays. Like we make at least half of our money off of merch touring.
Yeah. We're
But
like
we,
t-shirt salesmen.
yeah, t-shirts.
You're not the first people who've
Oh
said
my
that to
gosh.
me.
That's
Yeah, so
how it
t-shirts
feels.
is the big one. Vinyl and Oracle decks are really helpful. CD people still buy CDs, which I love because they're lightweight and they're inexpensive to produce and they don't melt in the car or break or weigh a million
This
pounds.
Right.
sounds
Like
like a comment based on dark personal experience.
I love vinyl, but like man, if you're touring in the summer, like you got to get them out of the car.
it's heavy also. Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
bought like warped vinyl from other touring artists. I've been like excited to listen to their record, and I put it on, and it's like, oh. So that's yes, we're to the wise to get the vinyl out of the car.
That's an important
Uh,
tip.
But yeah, as far as like supporting bands goes, like
Mm.
buying something at the merch table is like the most helpful thing.
Hmm.
It is the most helpful thing. And like I feel like it's a two that also is a two-way street because like the fan gets a cool thing that they then own and like the band gets, real money because Spotify has been like the algorithm's been very kind to us and like we've definitely like reached more people than we ever imagined that we
Mm.
would.
Yeah.
But like it is a drop in the bucket as far as like the overall financial picture goes.
And that's a really fascinating picture that you've painted there of the different strands of how the band sort of supports itself.
Yeah.
So I have like sort of a couple of questions coming out of that. How, oh, actually, no, the first thing is, is this like full time for you, the band, or?
We,
Ish.
yeah, we both have little side
Freelance.
gigs
Yeah,
that
I write grants and
I do some very part-time development, web
like
development stuff.
and both are pretty flexible in terms
Yeah,
of the timing. But yeah, this project is like the main activity.
yeah, without a doubt.
But it's not very financially remunerative, but like it's not nothing.
Yeah. And how have those sort of dynamics evolved over the lifetime of the band, in terms of the different strands and in terms of how much time you're putting into these different elements?
Yeah. Well, back in the beginning,
Back in the day,
we both had
real jobs.
real jobs and our own individual bands with lots of members in it.
Yeah, Charming Disaster was like the fun side project at the beginning. All
Yeah,
the resources were going into the other bands, really.
yeah. And
Um,
all our time too,
yeah,
because we had full-time jobs.
yeah.
And
But
then Charming Disaster seemed to like eclipse the kind of I don't know, the uptake, I think, of what we were doing
well, it was so
was
much easier to do a two-person project just
so
because like
much
there's
easier.
you don't have to like wrangle schedules of like eight other people and
Mm.
we were just more nimble and so we were able to write more and tour more and do more. Um, I mean, what I realized was that having an eight-person band required some kind of subsidy or sugar daddy or patronage,
Yeah,
and
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 I
it
had
was
yeah,
and it was me
uh,
working a full-time job.
yeah.
And that was an acceptable situation for, like
Hmm.
it was an art rock band and it needed like for everybody to get paid at least a little something at small gigs, like somebody had to foot the bill and it was the day job. But this project, as it kind of eclipsed the other ones, we also started to bump up against the limitations of how much we could do with this project while still working full
Yeah.
time. So I forget who left the full-time world
I
first.
think you left first,
Yeah, it was
but I
like
was very much encouraging you.
everybody was very encouraging, actually. It's weird. I left a full-time. I worked at a hedge fund the last 5 years of my full-time job life. And I'd always had a full-time office job, like since college. So in 2015, I left that world to try my hand at a freelance slash gigging musician life and never imagined it would last as long as it has.
Yeah.
Um,
I think in 2018, I think I left my full-time job, which I was working at a consulting company. And I had pretty generous time off. And I really took advantage of that as much as possible. And like my office jobs and all my other jobs in my whole like adult career were always side jobs for doing music.
Mm.
It was my identity and my main preoccupation was making music in some way. So I never really I don't have a career as a result of that besides music, and I just kind of lucked into a bunch of different jobs and office jobs and situations where I had a pretty flexible schedule, and then I couldn't take it anymore, and we kind of like, and then I was like, we had to
Remember
tour more.
color
I
printers?
know we had a great color
We had
printer,
access to like the good office color
and I'd
printer.
print up posters for the band
Looks so
constantly.
nice.
It was just 11 by 17.
Yeah,
Uh,
access to high quality printers is not to be taken lightly.
Oh
yeah,
gosh,
and mailroom services on occasion.
that was the hardest part
Yeah,
of
giving up the
doing.
color printers.
Um, but Anyway,
And snacks, there were free snacks. Yeah. It's all right.
well, now the band plays for our snacks.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Um, so yeah, and then let's see, I was working, then I quit that full time and I was doing like freelance with them. And then the pandemic hit
Mm.
and that freelance dried up and I just had like little, and I basically, and currently like living off of the money that I saved while I was working at that job.
Sort of breaking even, more or less. Like,
Yeah, I'm just
yeah,
treading water.
yeah, basically treading water. I'm not like putting away any savings or anything. Although the savings that I had put away are now basically gone because
Oh
of
yeah, mine too.
the crashing economy.
Oh
So,
yeah, all that.
you know, it's like you might as well quit your job and be a musician because, like, you know, the end result is going to be the same. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
Yes, gallows humor.
yes. Well, is there any other kind, really?
I mean, it's the best kind.
the
Mm.
best
Um,
kind.
I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I am fascinated by this subject. Do you have time for a couple more sort of
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
related questions? Cool.
fun.
I,
yeah.
I have got a deep personal antipathy towards, well, basically, I hate nothing more than Amazon. I haven't bought anything from Amazon in about 15 years. I won't even use their search engines. For obvious
Good.
reasons, I
Yeah.
have a deep dislike of Twitter. I noticed that you were on Blue Sky, where I have also gone recently, which seems like a somewhat reasonable
Mm.
alternative. I am still kind of embedded because it seems to be something that people say is useful. I'm embedded in the meta world, but I also feel extremely unhappy about Mark Zuckerberg. So
Yeah, same.
I love this talk of the Patreon, you know, as kind of an alternative to having to sort of exist in this social media
Mm.
world. I nearly said metaverse, which I didn't mean to you know mention their brand. But yeah, like I mean, I understand that. I suppose you use. I think you are on Instagram as well, right? So I guess you know you
Oh,
sort of.
we're on everything. We're
Yeah,
everywhere.
we have to be.
Like we have to be. I mean, I love Patreon, but Patreon is like a closed community. Like it is a gate, it has a wall around it,
Yeah,
which like, you know, for the people who want to be in there, like that's wonderful.
yeah,
But like we need to bring people in there from
yeah.
somewhere. And
Mm.
that somewhere is the metaverse, more or less. I mean, it's real life and it's other places, but
Well, I
you
was
know,
kind of wondering, like with the Patreon side of things, like it would suggest to me that you have built up a very grassroots following, which I guess has come from a lot of touring and making
it,
different connections that way. I'm wondering, like how much of a sort of a conscious plan did
Mm.
you have about building up a sort of support network and a community in that way?
um,
Well, I think early on
yeah.
in our adventure here, we got picked up on this podcast called Welcome to Night Vale. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was a very, especially at the time, it was very popular, and it was like the top podcast at the time or
Yeah,
something
it
like
was
that.
like a spooky Prairie Home Companion. Like it was, you know, if
It was
Prairie
a,
Home Companion took place in the town of Twin Peaks or something, I
or
think it's how
yeah,
to
it was
describe it.
like
Mm.
But narrative, serial,
yeah, it was like
yeah.
the conceit was it was like a radio program and but everything was creepy and Stephen King-esque and
And
but
each
it was
Sounds pretty
very
cool.
very funny and
yeah.
written by someone who's like a poet and like poetic and beautiful um and a lot of interesting characters and every episode they would have this, it was called The Weather, which I mean it's still running. It's called The Weather and they would feature an unsigned band. They would just play the
Just
song,
one song.
one song, and it had nothing to do really with the up. They didn't talk about it. It was like that one song, and then they moved on. And for whatever, I don't know how they found us, but
Just honest.
they picked up one of our songs, and from that we got a huge following, and that was
I mean,
very
huge for
helpful.
us. Like it went from
Right.
like it was before our first album had even come out, and so like we went from like approximately zero listeners to like, you know, a few thousand like overnight,
Wow.
Yeah.
which was huge for us. So like that was sort of our first like community building like
Hmm.
thing that happened, and we've had a few other sort of flashes like that, which we've been able to incorporate. One is when we toured with Rasputina in 2019. We did 8 dates with them across the Midwest, and it was a great pairing. And like we like their audience was like really primed to be interested in the kind of stuff that we do. Immediately after which the pandemic hit, basically,
Mm.
and we started doing weekly live streams as just a thing to do because we
Hmm.
couldn't think of what else to do, and a community really grew up around those live streams. It was a lot of people who had seen us in the Rasputina tour and like, all of our touring activities over the previous years. But it became kind of a close-knit community because people were able to connect not just with us, but with each other through like the chat in the live streams. And we showed up consistently every
Yeah.
week during a time when people like really just needed a campfire to be around. And so that a lot of those people are who became our Patreon patrons. But you can't go from zero to Patreon patron. Like it is a continuum and like like a funnel, and like you have to like desire a certain amount of like closely connected engagement to want to be in the Patreon. And so,
Hmm.
we're always kind of thinking about how do we serve the people who don't know us that well yet, as well as how do we serve the people who, have been like watching everything we do since
Yeah.
day one. And so like trying to thread that needle is always kind of an interesting question. So like the Patreon, we do more like behind the scenes stuff and like the making of the song things, more personal stories, which like not everybody's interested in, but like, if you like our music above a certain threshold, then like, that might be interesting.
Right.
And the Patreon is also like a pay what you want thing. Like everybody gets the same rewards, whether it's, a dollar.
Okay, so you don't do it as a tier. It's just okay.
Yeah.
No, you want in,
Yeah.
you pick how much,
It's a
and
low
yeah.
barrier to entry.
Yeah.
It's just so. Yeah, so like what we were saying, like all of our, if you could think of our income streams as being so varied and like have to be tended to, similar to how we get kind of people into our tent, into our world. It's like we have the live streams, we have touring is a way we connect with people. We have, the recordings and hopefully like, the PR efforts and like great folks like you or like spreading the word. We have all these different tendrils out there to try to tentacles, try to rope people in or entice people in and, create this community.
But I mean, I'd love to like not be in the metaverse, but like I
Oh,
just
and
I don't I think it's necessary for it's like a lot
Hmm.
of our people are there, and I know like everybody loves to talk a big game about how they're leaving Facebook, but like I feel like everybody I know who leaves Facebook then comes back to Facebook because it's useful, and like I love Blue Sky, but Blue Sky is not substitutive for the functions of Facebook. It's a great substitute for Twitter, but Twitter was never like our big place
yeah,
Yeah.
anyway.
I mean, that was a
Um,
thing for me. Like I've mentioned this before. Like I did a piece about bans and social media and basically said like it's partly an ethical stance, but I'm not gonna, get on my soapbox and say, oh, look at what a fantastic. I'm not Ian Mackay or Napalm Death taking a stand
right,
against all of the capitalist machine, because part of the reason why I felt like I could get off Twitter was it wasn't actually doing anything for me anyway. So it was kind of an
yeah,
easy
right.
thing to do.
right,
I mean, Spotify is like a similar thing. Like,
yeah,
I like the Spotify people are not any less yucky than, than the Meta people or the Amazon people. But it, it only hurt like if there were a movement that we, to be part of, like that would be one thing. If it were like
Yeah.
an organized movement where independent artists were like, screw you, Spotify, we're making our own platform. I'd be interested in like
sure,
exploring that. But like, unless you're Taylor Swift or Neil Young and it like impacts their bottom line, like, nobody cares if we're not on Spotify except for us and our fans. And like, I don't want to hurt us or our fans. Like, this
Yeah.
is yeah. So it's tough. It's tough. I mean, I totally respect the stance of just like avoiding Amazon entirely. Like kudos to you. I have also been trying to like use it less. Although I do use my mom's account to watch Wheel of Time, so there's that.
From time to time, I'm torn because I see they like Amazon Prime does some program, and I think I want to watch that, but then I don't want to feed the beast.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's true.
Yeah, yeah. You make me ponder. Like maybe we do need someone like Neil Young to come out and kind of like put their money where their mouth is and go like, all right, I'm going to create an alternative.
Hmm.
Not that I want to put all the pressure on Neil
Yeah,
Young, like he's not under an obligation to do that.
yeah. I mean, it wouldn't hurt if he did it. His record label owns part of Spotify, so it doesn't. It, it's just like it's a zero-sum game for him. It doesn't matter to him,
Mm,
I
you know.
mean, yeah, it's
Yeah,
capitalism is so complicated.
and
Like
it
we're all in bed with each other. And especially like having worked at a hedge fund, like in New York City, like all arts money like goes eventually, if you trace it back, is like finance industry money. Basically,
yeah,
like that's like either
yeah,
it's like Mike Bloomberg has like money to give to arts organizations, or like the people who work in finance have money to donate or to buy tickets to stuff or to back your Kickstarter or whatever it is. Like I don't know how to untangle it. Even the
yeah,
people who worked at that hedge fund, a lot of us were artists and like, you know, were able to like produce shows or albums or whatever, paintings, whatever it
yeah,
was, because like we had stable employment at a place that treated its employees with respect. Like it's so hard to tease it out. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. One of my best friends is always bursting my balloon about Amazon because he's like, "Do you know who owns this company? And do you know who owns this company?" It's like, come on, I'm doing my best. What can I do? I'm just trying.
it's important to try. It's
Yeah.
important to be conscious as much as possible and
Well,
realize, you know, that
yeah,
your decisions have impact or
yeah. I mean, I guess, you got to pick your battles
yeah,
ultimately
yeah.
and do the best that you can. Now, this has been insightful and fascinating, and I would also say inspiring. And I don't want to finish without giving you the opportunity to sort of sum things up in terms of where people should get the new record from, how they can get it, how they can support you, what shows you've got coming up, any sort of
Oh,
promotional elements
yeah.
that you would like to
We
to
have
finish
so
things up with.
We have so much of that. Before we dive into that, this maybe seems like a good moment to mention that we are working on our first UK tour. We are trying to get over your way this fall, and we have a bunch of dates kind of on the books and a few other dates that I'm trying to nail down. As far as where to get the new album, if you want to get it digitally, it will be available on all the major streaming platforms as well as Bandcamp. Physical media is available through Bandcamp. I don't know how many of your listeners are UK listeners. We're actually in the process of figuring out how to get somebody in the UK to do our UK fulfillment so that the shipping is less prohibitive.
Yeah, the
Because,
shipping thing is just such a nightmare
yeah,
all around.
yeah, it's a
You,
nightmare for us too.
yeah,
It's, yeah, it's a shared nightmare.
Please figure
Um,
that together.
yeah, yes, it's and like I get like I'm kind of a mailroom nerd, and so like I get very like into the granular details of like shipping fees and like how to, calculate them better for people. And anyway, digitally in all the places, and you can always go to charmingdisaster.com to find, how to connect with all of our other stuff. But we are omnipresent. We are in all the places.
Yes.
And charmingdisaster.com is a good place to find all those other places.
from which the
Uh,
various different tentacles spread out.
Exactly.
exactly, the tentacles. We're on Instagram, we're on Spotify, we're on Bandcamp. And we have lots of tour dates coming up. We're doing a big album release show in New York on May 15th. And then we're doing like a 3-week tour in the American Midwest and going up into the Northeast a bit in late May into early June. And that's kind of what we have on the books right now. Although we're working on fall. So I feel like that's far away. Who knows what's going to be happening for
Yeah.
them?
Who knows who will be?
We'll all just be fighting over scraps in the streets by then.
It's okay.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Well, on that positive note,
Yeah, you heard it here. Practice your crossbow.
We have some songs that will help you. Soft Apocalypse,
Yeah.
Ragnarok. We have our previous albums really do explore the end of all things in a few different places. Oh, string break song. Yeah, we've been preparing for this for a long time.
Nice. It's good to be prepared for all eventualities. Well, thank you so much for your time and your insight.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yes, excellent. Excellent questions.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thanks, Tom.
Take care.
Ciao.
Bye.
close